70 AD, Rome. Midnight. Emperor Vespasian stands on the darkest balcony of the Palatine Hill, staring down into the abandoned artificial lake of Nero. Tonight, his mind is consumed by a plan that everyone calls impossible: to build the greatest structure the world has ever seen, right on top of a swamp. A voice breaks the silence from behind. My Emperor. It is the head architect. His hands are trembling. We have run the calculations. It cannot be built there. The ground is rotten. It is a marsh. Every stone we lay will simply sink into the mud. Vespasian turns slowly. In his eyes, there is no fear, only a sharp, cold intelligence. Impossible? He asks, a faint smile playing on his lips. Do you know what my son Titus is bringing back from Jerusalem? Tons of gold and 100,000 slaves. He looks deep into the architect's eyes and delivers his command. You will drain that swamp, architect, and right on top of it, you will raise a beast that Rome will never forget. The architect swallows hard. He knows this is not a request. This is an imperial order that will change history. But there is something in the emperor's voice that makes him pause. This is not just about building. This is about erasing a memory, the memory of Nero. Do you know what used to be here? Vespasian asks, pointing down to the dark water below. The architect nods carefully. The Golden House, my Emperor. Nero's palace. Exactly. Vespasian's voice hardens. That madman built himself a paradise while Rome burned. He took the people's land and made it his own pleasure garden. This lake you see below? He filled it with imported fish and surrounded it with gold-plated statues. While citizens starved in the streets, Nero drank wine here and watched theatrical performances on floating stages. The architect can hear the anger in every word. Vespasian is not just angry at Nero. He is angry at what Nero represented: tyranny, self-indulgence, the abuse of power. And now Vespasian wants to make a statement, a very public, very permanent statement. I am going to give this land back to the people, Vespasian continues. Where Nero built his private lake, I will build the greatest amphitheater the world has ever seen, a place where Romans, not just emperors, can gather, where they can watch gladiators fight, where they can feel the power of Rome in their bones. The architect is beginning to understand. This is not just construction, this is propaganda. This is politics carved in stone. But, my Emperor, the architect ventures carefully, the foundation, the swamp, if we cannot solve that problem, nothing else matters. Vespasian smiles again, that cold, calculating smile. You will solve it, because if you do not, I will find someone who will, and you, architect, will be remembered as the man who said no to the greatest building project in Roman history. The threat is clear. There is no room for failure. The architect bows his head. He knows what this means. Months, maybe years of sleepless nights, endless calculations, innovative engineering solutions that have never been tried before. But he also knows something else. If he succeeds, his name will live forever. I will begin immediately, my Emperor. Vespasian nods. Good. And remember this. My son Titus is on his way back from Judea as we speak. He has just destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem. He is bringing back treasures beyond imagination. The menorah, the table of showbread, gold vessels, silver, and most importantly, prisoners, Jewish captives who will build this monument with their own hands. The architect feels a chill. He knows what this means. Slave labor on a scale never seen before. Thousands upon thousands of men working day and night. Chains, whips, blood mixed with mortar. But that is how Rome works. That is how empires are built. Vespasian walks to the edge of the balcony and looks out over the city. Rome is restless, architect. The civil war has just ended. 4 emperors in 1 year. The people are scared. They need stability. They need to believe in Rome again, and I am going to give them something to believe in. Something so massive, so overwhelming, that when they look at it, they will know that Rome is eternal. This is the moment the architect realizes the true scale of what is being asked of him. This is not just about architecture. This is about restoring faith in an empire that nearly tore itself apart. This building will be a symbol, a message to every citizen, every soldier, every enemy of Rome. We are still here, we are still strong, and we are not going anywhere. My emperor, the architect asks quietly, "What do you want to call this structure?" Vespasian pauses. He has not thought about that yet. For now, he says, "We will call it the Flavian Amphitheatre, after my family, after the Flavian dynasty, a dynasty that will be remembered not for cruelty like Nero, but for giving Rome back to the Romans." The architect nods, but in his mind, he is already thinking about something else. He is thinking about the challenge ahead. How do you build on a swamp? How do you drain a lake that has been sitting there for years, soaking into the earth, turning the ground into sludge? How do you lay a foundation strong enough to hold 50,000 people screaming at once? The weight alone would be crushing. The vibrations from the crowd would shake the very walls. Every detail has to be perfect, every calculation precise. One mistake, and the entire structure could collapse, killing thousands and humiliating the emperor. Vespasian seems to read his thoughts. "I know what you are thinking, architect. You are wondering if it can be done. Let me tell you something. I did not become emperor by accepting limitations. I became emperor by doing what others thought was impossible. And you will do the same." The architect takes a deep breath. "Very well, my emperor. I will need time. I will need the best engineers in Rome. I will need access to the quarries at Tivoli for travertine stone. I will need volcanic ash from Pozzuoli for the concrete. I will need iron, lead, timber, and most of all, I will need labor. Thousands of men." Vespasian waves his hand dismissively. "You will have everything you need. Money is no object. Titus is bringing back enough gold to fund 10 amphitheaters. As for labor, you will have more slaves than you know what to do with. Jewish prisoners, strong men, broken men, men who will work until they drop because they have no choice." The architect feels a knot in his stomach. He knows what this means. Slave labor on a scale never seen before. But that is how Rome works. That is how empires are built. "What about the timeline?" the architect asks. "When do you want this completed?" Vespasian's answer is immediate. 10 years. The architect's eyes widen. 10 years? My emperor, a project of this scale usually takes 10 years, Vespasian repeats firmly. "I am not a young man, architect. I want to see this completed before I die, and if I do not, my son Titus will finish it. But it will be finished. That is not negotiable." The architect realizes there is no room for debate. He bows deeply. "It will be done, my emperor." Vespasian places his hand on his shoulder, a rare gesture of approval. "I believe you, architect. Now go. Begin your preparations. Drain that cursed lake. Dig down to solid ground. And when you are ready, we will lay the first stone together. And on that day, Rome will know that a new era has begun." The architect leaves the balcony, his mind racing. As he walks through the darkened halls of the palace, he begins to mentally list everything that needs to happen.
First, the drainage. Channels must be dug to divert the water away from the site. Then, the excavation. They will need to dig deep, far deeper than the lake bed, until they reach stable soil or bedrock. Then comes the foundation. Layers upon layers of volcanic concrete poured and compacted, creating a base strong enough to support the unimaginable weight of the structure above. But even as he thinks through the engineering challenges, another thought nags him. What if this project fails? What if the foundation cracks? What if the walls collapse during construction? What if, after all this effort, after all this gold and blood, the amphitheater becomes a monument to failure instead of triumph? He shakes his head. No, that cannot happen.
It will not happen, because Vespasian has made it clear there is no plan B. There is only success or death. As the architect steps out into the cool night air, he looks up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Titus is marching back to Rome with an army and a fortune. Somewhere out there, Jewish captives are being herded in chains, unaware that they are about to become the workforce of the greatest construction project in history. And somewhere beneath his feet, in the dark, muddy depths of Nero's abandoned lake, lies the future site of a structure that will stand for 2,000 years. A structure that will define Rome. A structure that will outlast emperors, gods, and even the empire itself. The architect takes a deep breath and whispers to himself, "Let us begin."
2 weeks later, the Via Appia, just outside Rome. Dawn is breaking, but the road is already thick with dust. A sound rises in the distance, not the sound of marching, something heavier, something that makes the ground tremble. The triumph of Titus. Citizens line the streets, thousands of them, packed shoulder to shoulder. Children sit on their fathers' shoulders. Old women clutch prayer beads. Veterans of past campaigns stand silent, eyes fixed on the horizon. They are all waiting for the same thing, the return of the conquering hero. Then they see it, the first glimpse of the procession. A wall of glittering steel and gold moving slowly toward the city gates. Roman legionaries march in perfect formation, their armor polished to a blinding shine. Behind them, carts. Dozens of carts. And on those carts, the treasures of Jerusalem. The crowd gasps. They have heard the rumors, but seeing it is different. Gold candlesticks taller than a man, silver trumpets encrusted with jewels, scrolls wrapped in silk. And at the center of it all, carried on a platform by 6 soldiers, the menorah, the 7-branched lampstand from the Second Temple. Solid gold, radiating light in the morning sun. A voice from the crowd shouts, "Titus! Titus! Imperator!" The chant spreads like wildfire. Within seconds, the entire street is roaring his name. Titus rides at the front on a white horse, dressed in purple. His face calm but proud. He raises one hand in acknowledgement. The crowd screams louder. But behind the glittering procession, there is something else. Something the crowd does not cheer for. A long column of prisoners. Jewish captives. Men, women, and a few children. Their hands are bound with rope. Their feet are chained. They stumble forward in the dust, eyes hollow, faces blank. They have walked for months to reach this moment, and now they are here, in the heart of the empire that destroyed their temple, their city, their lives. One of the prisoners, a man with a graying beard and sunken eyes, looks up at the cheering Romans. He does not understand their language, but he understands their joy. They are celebrating his people's destruction. He closes his eyes and whispers a prayer his grandfather taught him, a prayer for strength.
At the front of the procession, Titus turns to his second-in-command, a grizzled centurion named Marcus. "How many did we bring back?" Titus asks quietly. Marcus does not hesitate. 97,000, my lord, mostly men, strong enough to work." Titus nods slowly. His father will be pleased. 97,000 slaves, enough to build anything, enough to drain a lake, enough to raise a monument. "And the gold?" Titus asks. Marcus grins. "More than we can count, my lord, enough to make Rome rich for a generation." Titus allows himself a small smile. This is not just a military victory, this is an economic miracle. The war in Judea has been brutal, expensive. It drained the imperial treasury. But now, with the treasures of the Second Temple, Rome is flush again. And his father, Vespasian, will use that wealth to cement his legacy. The procession reaches the Forum, the heart of Rome. Senators stand on marble steps applauding. Priests offer blessings. Merchants throw flowers. But Vespasian himself is not there. He is waiting at the construction site, at Nero's lake. Titus dismounts and walks through the Forum, his boots echoing on ancient stone. He knows where his father is. He knows what his father is planning, and he approves. Because Titus understands something fundamental about power. It is not enough to conquer. You must also build. You must leave something behind that people can see, touch, and remember. He arrives at the edge of the drained lake, or rather, what used to be a lake. Now it is a massive pit, muddy, dark, crawling with workers, hundreds of them. Slaves, laborers, engineers, all moving like ants in a hive. Shovels scrape, pulleys creak, voices shout orders in Latin, Greek, and a dozen other languages. And there at the center of it all stands Vespasian, covered in dust. His imperial robes traded for a simple tunic. He is holding a scroll, pointing at something in the pit, arguing with the head architect. When he sees Titus approaching, he looks up. For a moment, father and son just stare at each other. Then Vespasian breaks into a wide grin. "My boy!" he shouts, spreading his arms. Titus embraces him. "Father, it is done. Jerusalem is ours." Vespasian pulls back, gripping his son's shoulders. "And the gold?" Titus nods. "Enough to build 10 amphitheaters." Vespasian laughs, a deep, genuine laugh. "Then we will build one so grand that the gods themselves will be jealous." He turns back to the pit, pulling Titus with him. "Look at this. Do you see what we are doing here? We are not just draining a lake, we are erasing Nero. Every stone we lay is a denial of his madness. Every column we raise is a declaration that Rome belongs to the people, not to tyrants." Titus looks down into the pit. He sees the slaves working, digging, hauling dirt in baskets, their backs bent, their faces expressionless. Many of them are his prisoners, the men he brought back from Jerusalem. He feels a flicker of something. Not guilt. Romans do not feel guilt about conquest, but perhaps awareness. These men once had lives, families. Now they are tools, instruments of Rome's glory. "How long until the foundation is ready?" Titus asks. The architect steps forward. 6 months, my lord, maybe less if the weather holds." 6 months, Titus nods. That is faster than he expected. "And the concrete, the opus caementitium." The architect's eyes light up. This is his area of expertise. "We are using volcanic ash from Pozzuoli, my lord, mixed with lime and aggregate. It sets underwater, it sets in mud. It is the strongest material we have ever created. Once it hardens, it will hold for 1,000 years. Vespasian interjects. "Longer than 1,000 years, architect. This structure will outlast Rome itself." The architect bows his head. He does not contradict the emperor, but privately, he wonders, can anything truly last forever? As the sun climbs higher, Titus watches the slaves descend into the pit. One of them stumbles, dropping his basket. A Roman overseer strikes him with a rod. The slave does not cry out. He just picks up the basket and keeps working. Titus looks away. This is the price of empire. This is the cost of glory. Blood, sweat, suffering. But history will not remember the slaves. History will remember the building. And it will remember the Flavian name.
3 months later, deep underground, the pit has transformed into something unrecognizable. What was once Nero's pleasure lake is now a canyon of mud, stone, and human misery. The architect stands at the edge, watching hundreds of slaves work in the depths below. They are digging channels, massive drainage tunnels that will carry away the water still seeping from the marshy ground. This is the most dangerous phase. One collapse could kill dozens. "Deeper!" shouts a Roman overseer, his voice echoing off the walls. "We need to reach bedrock!" But bedrock is a myth here. The ground is soft, layers of silt deposited over centuries. The architect knows they may never find solid rock, which means they need to create their own foundation, an artificial bedrock made of concrete. He turns to his assistant, a young Greek engineer named Philon. "How deep are we now?" 12 meters, master," Philon replies, consulting his notes. "But the water keeps coming back. We drain it, and within hours it seeps through again." The architect rubs his temples. This is the nightmare he feared. Building on a swamp is like building on quicksand. Every solution creates a new problem. "We need more pumps," he says finally, "and we need them now." Philon hesitates. "Master, we are already using every pump in Rome. There are no more." "Then build more," the architect snaps. "I do not care if you have to strip every fountain in the city. We need to keep this pit dry, or the entire project fails before it even begins." Down in the pit, a slave collapses. Heat exhaustion, or starvation, or both. His fellow prisoners do not stop working. They cannot. The overseers are watching, always watching. One man drags the body to the side and keeps digging. The architect sees this and feels nothing. Or rather, he has trained himself to feel nothing. Empathy is a luxury he cannot afford. If he stops to think about the suffering, he will never finish the project. And failure means disgrace, possibly death. A messenger arrives, breathless. "Sir, the first shipment of travertine has arrived from Tivoli." Finally, some good news. The architect follows the messenger to the surface. There, lined up along the Via Tiburtina, are dozens of ox-drawn carts. Each one carries massive blocks of white stone, travertine, the backbone of Roman architecture, quarried from the hills near Tivoli, 30 kilometers away. The architect approaches the nearest cart and runs his hand over the stone. It is smooth, cool, and impossibly heavy. Each block weighs several tons. Moving them from Tivoli to Rome was a monumental task in itself. The road had to be widened, bridges reinforced, and even then, the journey took weeks. "How many blocks do we have?" the architect asks. The foreman checks his ledger. 200 so far, sir. Another 1,000 are being cut as we speak." 200. The architect does a quick calculation in his head. They will need at least 100,000 blocks to complete the outer facade alone. This is just the beginning. He walks along the line of carts, inspecting each stone. Quality control is critical. A single weak block could compromise the entire structure. As he examines the stones, he notices something. Carved into the side of one block is a symbol, a Jewish symbol, a reminder that these stones are being cut by the same prisoners who once prayed in the temple that Titus destroyed. He pauses. For a brief moment, he allows himself to think about the irony. These men are building the monument to their own defeat. Every stone they cut, every block they haul, is a piece of their humiliation made permanent. But then he pushes the thought away. This is Rome. This is how empire works. The conquered build for the conquerors. It has always been this way. It will always be this way. He turns to the foreman. Start moving the stones to the site, and tell the workers to be careful. If even one block cracks, I will have someone flogged. The foreman nods and hurries away. The architect watches as the first cart begins to move, creaking under the weight of its cargo. The oxen strain, their muscles rippling. The wheels groan. Slowly, the stone begins its final journey, from the quarry to the amphitheater, from raw material to immortality. Above, storm clouds are gathering. Rain is coming, and rain means mud. The architect looks up at the darkening sky and mutters a prayer to Vulcan, god of fire and forge. Keep the ground dry, just a little longer, just until we finish the foundation. But the gods, it seems, are not listening. The first drops begin to fall.
The rain does not stop. For 3 days and 3 nights, water pours from the sky. The drainage channels overflow. The pit becomes a lake again. Everything the workers have accomplished in 3 months is undone in 72 hours. The architect stands in his tent, staring at maps that are now meaningless. Outside, he can hear the chaos, shouting, splashing, the crack of whips as overseers try to force slaves back into the flooded pit. It is useless. The water is chest-deep in some places. Philon enters, soaking wet. "Master, we have lost 2 pumps. They're buried under mud, and 5 slaves drowned trying to retrieve them." The architect does not look up. 5? "Yes, master." "That is acceptable. We have thousands more." His voice is cold, mechanical. He has learned to think in terms of numbers, not lives. But Philon looks troubled. "Master, the men are afraid. They say the gods are angry. They say Nero's ghost haunts this place and will not let us build." The architect slams his fist on the table. "Superstitious nonsense. There are no ghosts, only engineering problems, and every problem has a solution." "Then what is the solution, master?" Philon asked quietly. The architect finally looks up. His eyes are bloodshot. He has not slept in days. "We dig deeper. We build the channels wider. We bring in more pumps. We work faster. And if the slaves are afraid of ghosts, then we will work them so hard they are too exhausted to be afraid." Philon nods slowly. He knows better than to argue. By the 4th day, the rain stops, the sun returns, and with it, Emperor Vespasian. He arrives unannounced, riding through the mud on horseback, flanked by guards. When he sees the flooded pit, his expression darkens. The architect rushes to greet him, bowing low. "My emperor, I can explain." "Explain nothing," Vespasian interrupts. "I have eyes. I can see what happened." He dismounts and walks to the edge of the pit. For a long moment, he says nothing, just stares at the water. Then he turns to the architect. "How long to drain it again?" 2 weeks, my emperor, maybe 3. "You have 1 week." The architect's heart sinks. "My emperor, that is impossible. I did not ask if it was possible," Vespasian says quietly. "I gave you an order." The architect swallows hard. "Yes, my emperor." Vespasian places his hand on his shoulder. Not gently, firmly. "Architect, do you know why I chose this site? Not just to erase Nero, but to prove something, to prove that Rome can do anything, that we can build on water, on air, on nothing, because we are Rome, and Rome does not accept limitations." The architect nods. "I understand, my emperor." "Good, because if this project fails, it will not just be your failure, it will be mine, and I will not allow that." Vespasian releases him and walks back to his horse. Before mounting, he looks back one more time. "1 week, architect. Drain it in 1 week, or I will find someone who can." As the emperor rides away, the architect stands frozen. 1 week. It is impossible, but he has no choice. He turns to Philon. "Gather every able-bodied slave. I do not care if they are sick, injured, or dying. Everyone works." "But master, everyone works," the architect shouts. "Day and night. No rest, no food until we see progress. And anyone who collapses stays where they fall. We do not have time for mercy." Philon looks horrified but says nothing. He bows and leaves to relay the orders. That night, the pit becomes a scene from the underworld. Torches burn in the darkness. Hundreds of slaves work by firelight, scooping water with buckets, hauling mud in baskets. The sound is constant, splashing, scraping, groaning, and above it all, the crack of whips. The architect does not sleep. He stands at the edge, watching, counting, calculating. Every hour he measures the water level. Every hour it drops a little, not fast enough, but dropping. On the third night, an old Jewish prisoner collapses in the mud. He does not get up. His body lies there half submerged as other slaves step over him to continue working. By morning, he is gone, swept away by the drainage current or buried under fresh mud. No one knows, no one asks. By the 7th day, the pit is dry, not completely, but dry enough. The architect reports to Vespasian. The emperor inspects the site and nods. Acceptable. Now begin the foundation. And so, finally, after months of preparation, the real construction begins.
The foundation. The moment of truth. Everything depends on what happens next. If the base fails, the entire structure collapses. The architect knows this. Vespasian knows this. Even the slaves know this. The secret weapon is opus commenticium, Roman concrete. But not just any concrete. This is a formula perfected over centuries. Volcanic ash from Puziali, mixed with lime, water, and chunks of rock. When it sets, it becomes harder than stone. And unlike stone, it can be poured into any shape. The architect stands at the edge of the pit, watching as the first batch is prepared. Massive wooden mixers turn slowly, grinding the ingredients together. The smell is overwhelming. Sulfur from the volcanic ash, lime burning the nostrils, sweat from the slaves operating the mixers. "How much do we need?" asks Philon. The architect consults his calculations. For the foundation alone, approximately 12,000 cubic meters. Philon's eyes widen. "That is enormous." "Yes, which is why we will pour it in layers, 20 layers. Each one must dry before the next is added. It will take months." The first pour begins. Slaves carry the wet concrete in buckets, climbing down into the pit on wooden ladders. At the bottom, they dump the mixture into wooden forms that shape the foundation. The concrete spreads, thick and gray, filling every gap. The architect watches carefully. The consistency must be perfect. Too wet and it will not hold. Too dry and it will crack. He tests it with his hands, squeezing, feeling the texture. Satisfied, he nods.
Continue. Hour after hour, the concrete flows. The slaves work in shifts. When one group collapses from exhaustion, another takes their place. There is no stopping. The concrete must be poured while it is still workable. Once it starts to set, it becomes useless. By nightfall, the first layer is complete. The architect orders torches to be lit around the pit so work can continue through the night, but he also orders guards to be posted, not to keep people out, to keep slaves in, because some have started to whisper about escape. One young prisoner, a boy no more than 16, approaches an overseer. Please, he begs in broken Latin, water, just a little water. The overseer looks at him with disgust. You will drink when the work is done. But I am dying. The overseer strikes him across the face with the back of his hand. The boy falls into the wet concrete. For a moment he lies there, stunned. Then he struggles to his feet, concrete dripping from his hair and clothes. He says nothing more, just picks up his bucket and keeps working. The architect sees this from above but does not intervene. This is not cruelty for cruelty's sake. This is discipline. Without discipline, the project fails. And failure is not an option. Days turn into weeks. Layer after layer of concrete is poured. The foundation grows deeper, stronger. The architect inspects every layer personally. He taps it with a hammer, listening for cracks. He presses his ear against it, feeling for instability. Anything less than perfect is torn out and redone. Vespasian visits regularly. Each time he asks the same question, is it strong enough? And each time the architect gives the same answer, not yet, my emperor, but it will be. On the 40th day, the final layer is poured. The foundation is complete. 12,000 cubic meters of concrete, a solid mass that extends deep into the earth, spreading the weight across the unstable ground. It is a masterpiece of engineering, invisible, underground, but absolutely essential. The architect allows himself a moment of satisfaction. The hardest part is over. Now comes the building itself. The walls, the arches, the columns, the glory. But first, the concrete must cure. It needs time to harden fully, 30 days minimum. The architect orders the site to be cleared. The slaves are moved to other tasks, cutting stone, forging iron, preparing the next phase. And in the silence, deep underground, the concrete begins its transformation. Molecules bond, crystals form. Slowly, invisibly, the foundation becomes stone. Not natural stone, something better, something that will last 2,000 years.
The sound of iron on stone echoes across the construction site. It is a sound that will not stop for years. The outer shell is rising. Massive blocks of travertine, each weighing over a ton, are being lifted into place by an engineering marvel, the polyspastos. The architect stands beneath one of these cranes, watching as slaves and engineers work in perfect coordination. The polyspastos is a system of pulleys and ropes, multiplying human strength by factors of 10. What would take 100 men to lift directly can be raised by 20 using this machine. "Steady," shouts the crane master. "Lift on my count. 1, 2, 3. 30 slaves pull in unison. The ropes go taut. Slowly, impossibly, a 2-ton block of travertine rises from the ground. It climbs higher, 5 meters, 10 meters, 15. The wooden frame of the crane groans under the weight, but holds. The architect watches with held breath. One mistake here means death. If the rope snaps, the stone falls. Anyone beneath it dies instantly. It has happened before. It will happen again. The block reaches its destination, the 20th row of the outer wall. Skilled masons guide it into position using wooden poles. The fit must be perfect. No gaps, no misalignment. These stones are not held together by mortar, they are held by iron. Once the block is positioned, the real innovation begins. A blacksmith approaches with a metal clamp. Not just any clamp. This is a specially designed iron bracket shaped to fit into carved grooves on the top and bottom of each stone. The clamp is placed, and then comes the crucial step. Molten lead is poured over it. The lead sizzles as it hits the iron, sending up a cloud of toxic smoke. The slaves nearby cover their mouths with rags, but it does not help much. Lead poisoning is common among the workers. Trembling hands, blurred vision, madness. But the Romans do not know about lead poisoning, or if they do not care. The lead cools and hardens, locking the iron clamp in place. Now the stone is permanently bonded to the one beneath it, not with mortar, which can crumble, but with metal. 300 tons of iron and lead will be used to bind this structure together. It is expensive, but it is eternal. Philon approaches the architect with troubling news. "Master, we are running low on iron." The architect frowns. "How low?" "At the current rate, we will run out in 6 weeks." 6 weeks, not nearly enough time. The architect thinks quickly. "Send word to the foundries in Capua. I want every forge working day and night. And send scavengers into the city, old weapons, broken tools, anything iron, melted down." Philon hesitates. "Master, the emperor will not like us taking iron from the armories." "The emperor wants this building finished. He will understand." But privately, the architect worries. Iron shortages could delay the project by months, and every delay gives Vespasian more reason to doubt him, more reason to replace him. As the sun sets, the work does not stop. Torches are lit, the cranes keep lifting, the hammers keep ringing. The architect has learned that momentum is everything. Stop for even a day and the workers lose rhythm, lose discipline, lose focus. He walks along the rising wall, running his hand over the stone. Each block is marked with a symbol indicating which quarry it came from, which team cut it, which mason placed it. Accountability. If a stone cracks or fails, they will know who to blame. At the corner of the structure, he notices something unusual. One of the stones has a crude drawing scratched into it, a 7-branched candlestick, the menorah, a Jewish symbol. The architect stares at it for a long moment. Some slave, in a moment of defiance, carved this, a small rebellion, a tiny claim of identity in a place designed to erase him. The architect could report it, have the stone removed, have the slave found and punished. But he does not. Instead, he covers the symbol with his hand and walks away. Let it stay. 2,000 years from now, when this building still stands, someone will find that symbol and wonder, and perhaps they will remember. Not the emperors, not the architects, but the hands that built it.
The building is rising fast now. Too fast, some whisper. 4 stories tall. Each level is different, and this is intentional. This is Roman order made visible. The ground level features Doric columns, simple, strong, masculine. The columns are thick with minimal decoration. They represent the foundation of Roman society. The soldiers, the workers, the strength of the state. The second level has Ionic columns, more slender, more elegant. The capitals are decorated with spiral scrolls called volutes. This represents the middle class, merchants, administrators, the civilized heart of the empire. The third level displays Corinthian columns, ornate, elaborate. The capitals are carved with acanthus leaves and flowers. This represents the elite, senators, priests, the pinnacle of Roman culture. And the fourth level, still under construction, will have pilasters, flat columns embedded in the wall.
This represents the gods themselves, looking down on everything below. The architect walks through the construction site, examining each level. This hierarchy is not just aesthetic, it is structural. The heaviest, thickest columns are at the bottom, bearing the most weight. The lighter, more decorative columns are at the top. Form follows function. Function creates beauty. But there is a problem. The third level is behind schedule. The Corinthian capitals are incredibly complex. Each one takes a master carver weeks to complete, and there are 80 of them needed. The architect finds the head carver, an old Greek named Demetrius, working on a capital. His hands move with practiced precision, chiseling delicate leaves into the stone. Each leaf must be perfect. Each curve must flow naturally. "Demetrius," the architect says, "we need these finished faster." The old man does not look up. "Art cannot be rushed, master." "This is not art. This is construction." Now Demetrius looks up. His eyes are tired but defiant. "Everything is art, or nothing is. You choose." The architect wants to argue, but he knows Demetrius is right. These columns will stand for centuries. They must be perfect. "How long?" he asks quietly. 6 months, maybe more." The architect closes his eyes. 6 months they do not have. Vespasian is growing impatient. He visits the site almost daily now, asking the same questions. When will it be finished? Why is it taking so long? Other emperors have built faster. "What if we simplify the design?" the architect suggests. Demetrius shakes his head firmly. "Then it will not be Corinthian. It will be something else, something inferior." The architect knows he's right, but he also knows the pressure he's under. Do the best you can, but do it faster. As he walks away, he hears Demetrius muttering Greek, something about barbarians who do not understand beauty. The architect pretends not to hear. At the top of the structure, workers are installing the velarium supports. These are massive stone brackets that will eventually hold the ropes for a giant canvas awning. The velarium will shade the spectators from the sun during events. It's an ambitious design, a retractable roof system operated by sailors from the Roman Navy. When Vespasian first proposed it, the architect thought it was impossible. But now, seeing the brackets being installed, he realizes it might actually work. A young engineer named Gaius is overseeing this part of the project. "Master," he calls down, "we have a problem with the angles." The architect climbs the scaffolding. From up here, Rome spreads out in every direction. The Forum, the Palatine Hill, the Tiber River winding through the city. For a moment, he allows himself to appreciate the view. Then he focuses on the problem. "Show me," he says. Gaius points to the brackets. "If we angle them as planned, the ropes will rub against the stone. Over time, the friction will wear them down. They will snap." The architect studies the design. Gaius is right. This is a serious flaw. "What do you suggest?" "Bronze sleeves. Insert them into the stone. The ropes run through the bronze instead of touching stone. Less friction, longer life." The architect nods slowly. It is a good solution. Expensive, but good. "Do it." And Gaius, "Yes, master? Well spotted. You may have just saved lives." Gaius beams with pride. Small victories like this keep the project moving forward. One problem solved. 1,000 more waiting.
80 AD, 10 years after construction began, the day has finally arrived. Vespasian did not live to see it. He died a year ago, probably from illness, possibly from poison. But his son Titus has kept the promise. The Flavian Amphitheatre is complete. The night before the opening, the architect stands alone in the empty arena. The floor is covered with fresh sand, harena, they call it,
the Latin word for sand. One day, this entire building will be known by that word, Colosseum, but not yet. Tonight, it is still the Flavian Amphitheatre. He looks up at the walls rising around him, 4 stories of perfectly aligned stone, 80 arches per level, 320 arches total, each one precisely calculated, each one supporting the one above it. It is a masterpiece of engineering, and it is his. But it is also theirs, the 97,000 slaves who dug the foundation, who mixed the concrete, who hauled the stones, who bled and died to make this possible. Their names are not recorded, their faces are forgotten, but their work remains. The architect hears footsteps behind him. It is Philon, now gray-haired and bent from years of labor. "Master," he says quietly, "the emperor is asking for you." The architect nods. "I will come." But first, he places his hand on the wall one last time. He has touched every part of this building, inspected every stone, approved every detail. It is more than a structure. It is a part of him. He finds Titus in the imperial box, overlooking the arena. The new emperor is younger than his father, but carries the same weight. "Architect," Titus says without turning, "tomorrow 50,000 people will fill this space. They will cheer, they will gasp, they will watch men die for their entertainment. Tell me, will it hold?" The architect does not hesitate. "It will hold, my emperor." "You sound certain." "I am certain. Every calculation has been checked, every stone has been tested. This building will stand for 1,000 years. Titus finally turns to look at him. 1,000 years? You aim high, architect." "No, my emperor, I aim accurately." Titus smiles, a rare expression. "My father chose well when he chose you. You have given Rome something eternal." The architect bows. "It was an honor to serve." The opening ceremony begins at dawn. 100 days of games, gladiators, wild beasts, naval battles. We will flood the arena and stage ship combat. The people will witness wonders they have never imagined. The architect says nothing. He has done his part. What happens inside this building is no longer his concern. The next morning, Rome awakens to the sound of trumpets. The streets are packed. Citizens push and shove to reach the amphitheater. Senators arrive in litters. Merchants wave tickets. Children ride on their father's shoulders. The architect watches from a distance. He does not enter. He does not need to. He has spent 10 years inside that building. Today belongs to others. As the sun rises higher, sailors from the naval base at Misenum climb to the top of the structure. They begin pulling ropes. Slowly, impossibly, a massive canvas awning unfurls above the arena, the velarium. It works perfectly. The crowd below erupts in applause. Inside the arena, the games begin. Gladiators march in formation. Lions roar in cages beneath the floor. The crowd roars louder. This is what they came for: blood, spectacle, the power of Rome made visible. The architect turns and walks away. His work is done. He does not need to see the games. He does not need the applause. He has built something that will outlast emperors, outlast gods, outlast Rome itself. 2,000 years later, his building still stands, broken, scarred, half destroyed by earthquakes and stone thieves, but standing. A monument not to emperors or slaves, but to the human drive to create, to build, to leave something behind that says, "We were here, we mattered, we endured." And buried deep in the foundation, invisible to the world, lies the secret. 12,000 cubic meters of volcanic concrete, the heart of the structure, the reason it survived.
Modern engineers have studied it, analyzed it, tried to recreate it, and failed, because the Romans knew something we have forgotten: how to build for eternity.